So good afternoon, everyone. This is my first time doing this. It's kind of impromptu. Um, my name is Veronica Powell. Um, I am currently a mom of three children on the autism spectrum. I have a 15-year-old son named Malachi, a 12-year-old daughter named Cadence, and a 10-year-old son named Elijah. Um, and I felt like I should take the opportunity to share my journey with you all, because it's being a parent of children on the spectrum presents some significant challenges. And even with the amount of experience I have being a mom to children on the spectrum, um, it, it simply it simply creates more and more challenges, and you have to kind of adjust fire as you go along. I guess just to set a little context, I did begin as I was married to my kid's father. We got married back in the um, the spring of 2008, and my husband at the time, he ended up coming on active duty with me. I was stationed at my first duty station at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, where we spent about a year and a half, where I worked at an Army hospital as a registered nurse on the med surg floor. So during that experience, I ended up learning that I was expecting. Um, I did not have any intention of having children while I was in the service. I did want to wait until I was able to dedicate my time to my child, give him my undivided attention. But life had different plans. So when I found out I was expecting my first child, which is my oldest son Malachi, I ended up requesting to resign from the military. I had to jump a few hoops, some legal obligations, and my 4-year active duty orders. So after going through the hoops and what have you, I was able to get approved to resign. So once I resigned, I ended up leaving my active duty station and coming back to Wisconsin with my husband a few months later. So this is way before I knew what my life trajectory would look like. So I ended up having my son um, in August of 2009, and he was a sweet little boy, 6 pounds 1 ounce, 3 ounces, 6 pounds 3 ounces, and I named him Malachi. And there still is a lot that remains to be learned about the autism spectrum disorder, but I didn't really get a full idea of what was going on until my son was like a little over a year old, around 13, 14 months. I did notice that he had started saying some words like mama, dada, like the beginning of words, and I would try to get him to speak, and he would try to repeat some of the sounds that he heard. And now his motor skills were up to par. He was crawling on time. He was able to walk on time, but that social piece was significantly delayed. So after a series of doctor's appointments and things like that, because we kind of figured something was going on, um, he was first diagnosed with pervasive developmental delay, and from that point, we had to figure out, um, what with this diagnosis, what do we do? I mean, what the next steps were. Um, so that ended up not being the know all tell all, because pervasive developmental delay, as a lot of people know in the neurodivergent community, that is just a delay, like a cognitive issue. Um, he was also he was also diagnosed with receptive expressive disorder. Now, mind you, now that I look back in hindsight, these are all steps, ladders, are all conditions that are all encompassed to diagnose a person on the spectrum. And like I said, once again, I was not aware of what all that entailed at that point. So he continued to have challenges, wasn't able to potty train. He got to a point where he didn't recognize his own name. So it was definitely a lot. Um, he would have like these outbursts. We go out and go shopping and stuff like that. And he'd have these outbursts where he'd be screaming hysterically when we went in the store and we have to leave the store, or if we got ready to go into a restaurant, he would kind of go off into like a meltdown. Granted, at that time I didn't know it was a meltdown. Um, his father really did not have the skills to take on the task of helping to raise a child with potential special needs. He was pretty much in a lot of denial. So eventually, I got a referral to a neuropsych provider who was the person that was actually the person that we needed to consult with. Um, he was put on what's called a waiver, a Katie Beckett waiver, and he was put on a waiting list to start what was called ABA therapy. Um, very, very helpful, and it was like it helped us overcome a huge hurdle in his development. Um, so what would happen is we would have therapists come to the house and work with Malachi throughout the day and do a pretty intensive one-on-one to kind of help him learn social skills and some life skills that he would need that would help him be able to integrate into not only life with family and other people he has to be in social settings with, but in school. And they even went to church with us to kind of help him acclimate to the church setting, because the going to church and and having a neurodivergent child was very hard. He'd have moments where he'd be stimming really loud, like making loud vocalizations, making humming sounds. And for those who aren't familiar with what stimming sounds like for some people, and it varies from person to person who's on the spectrum. For Malachi, it was like really loud sounds, like he was crying and screaming. Almost you would think he was in pain, but he wasn't in pain. It was just his way of showing his excitement and processing his environment. Or he would make humming sounds like so like just like sensory processing, so to speak. So I had some pretty significant challenges. My church that I attended was very conservative, um, and it was very quiet. They expected everybody to be quiet through the service, and children had to sit like robots, which is really unrealistic. I mean, you have like a 2 or 3 month old infant, they're not going to sit quietly through the service. So we have to take our kids out and stuff like that and help them relax and calm down. But Malachi's situation wasn't that cut and dry, because his comprehension was significantly delayed. So I would get criticized and kind of picked with members of the church. The minister's wife and I kind of had a back and forth. It was awful. It really did take a major toll on me at that point. So, yep, that was a pretty significant challenge. But like I said, going back to ABA therapy, Malachi really excelled. He learned his alphabet, he learned his numbers, he relearned how to say mama, and he relearned how to say certain phrases like hi mom, and he was able to even respond to his name after a point. We did face some pretty significant challenges because we didn't know which way to help facilitate Malachi's communication. Granted, we do have like those charts, those boards. They have like the pictures and stuff like that that kind of help him correlate the action with the actual picture to be able to communicate his needs. Um, that worked somewhat with Malachi, but Malachi, over years, he was able to kind of form his own way of learning things, which I found to be quite impressive. He was able to say certain words. So he was able to say certain words or make do certain mannerisms, like point at certain things or just kind of show you what he wanted, as opposed to identifying pictures. I mean, I don't know. I just think that was his preference. So, um, so I did tell you in the beginning that me and my kid's father were married for a while. I think our breaking point was when we just had our challenges associated with trying to raise children on the spectrum. He became violent. He was abusive. So that goes without saying that it was time for us to go our separate ways. He just wasn't a healthy person to have in in a life at this point. So I had to ended up resulting in us splitting and going our separate ways. Um, but that's okay though. We were able to persevere outside of that and able to do the best we could moving forward. Even with that being said, even with those challenges and adversities facing us, I was grateful to be able to kind of stand up on my own 2 feet and still push forward, even with that um, taking place. So at that point, it ended up just being us. You know,